Hello and welcome once again to the HowLongToBeat podcast. As always, I am Rick. Paula is Paula.
Hello, I'm Paula.
Alex is Alex.
Hello, I am Alex.
And this show is 1.5 to 2 hours of fun gaming content, we hope. We've all beaten games this week, so that would be nice. One of us is retired again. We'll touch briefly on that. We've all been playing games because it's a gaming podcast. I mean, what did you expect? And this week we're going to be talking AI in gaming. So we'll see what goes on there. ChatGPT pun here, maybe. It's my edit. We'll see if I think of something good in the next few days. And as always, we're going to finish off with an installment, the fourth to last. Fourth to last. How does that work?
This is 122,
then third
right?
to last.
122,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5. There's 4 left.
So it's fourth to last. That's how that works. Right, okay. We have an installment of How Long to Beat.
HowLongToBeat The Game. Get me right while I'm taking a drink of goddamn water.
Listen, if you're not going to take the bait, I'm going to get you somehow.
Goddamn.
Paula, tell us about your completion this week.
Okay, so I don't know why, but I was just feeling like replaying the Oregon Trail, and that is it. That's the whole thing. Okay, no. So in this game, you're kind of like the leader of a group, and you have to go cross the whole United States to get to Oregon. And the thing is that you can take decisions. Those decisions can be good or be bad, or you can just be fucked by RNG, because that's a thing that happens. So this game actually took me 2 attempts to beat it. The first one, I was very close to it, to the end, and I died miserably. More on that in a little bit. And the second attempt was the one that actually worked. So in the first attempt, I actually went with a group of friends from Studio Voyager for the names. So and decided to live on April. And also you can choose the background of your character. Mine was a farmer from Illinois, which, by the way, it affects some events on the game, because I think the farmer allows you to pick up berries from berry bushes you find along the way. The carpenter will allow you to fix your wagon. And I don't remember the third one, but it had some effect also I think it was for the clothes, but I don't remember quite well. Anyway, so I was a farmer from Illinois that gave us a little bit of food, and I went with a lot of recommendations from the game, and that was a horrible idea. So I bought 6 oxen, you buy them by 2. You have to buy them in pairs. You can buy them only one of them. So it was recommended to have 3 pairs of oxen. I got the 3 of them, and I got a lot of food, little tuna bullets, and other items that were pieces to repair the wagon with. This first attempt started beautifully, with one of the Studio Voyager members breaking their leg, I think. And it was quite it was almost a running joke. Every 1 or 2 cities, or 1 or 2 landmarks, sorry, the same character broke their leg, and it was come on, stop. And other characters had I don't know, cholera and all things illnesses, and it wasn't pretty. And the thing is that you have to manage the amount of food you have. So you could manage the rations and make them, I think it was filling, meager, or bare bones. And most of the times my meals were meager, because I had to be able to survive until the next establishment. And I bought most of my food. Another grave error. Because another very, very bad error, because the best way to get food in this game is by hunting, by far. And I think you use up a day with hunting, but the amount of food that you get for your money, because you only have to use like a couple of bullets per hand. And please, no cat. Sorry, the cat was about to walk over my keyboard. No, he's not a good cat. Okay, so where was I? So yeah, the best way to get food in this game is by hunting, because the bullets are very cheap. Well, buying rations of food is more expensive. And oh my god, that's cute. Sorry. The too long didn't read of this thing. The first run sucked. I ran out of food constantly. I had to give them bare bones meal, which led to them getting sick more often. And that led to everyone being dead but me. And I got to the last mini game where you have to. And this is the thing, I didn't know that it was a mini game, because it says, oh, you have to cross the river, and every other time you have to cross the river, it was automatic, and it was pretty much a roll of the dice how well it went. No, in this case, you had to like maneuver down a river and avoid all the rocks and stuff, and then find the exit and get out of the river, and then you're in another one. That didn't go well. I drowned. Like the wagon hit an edge of the edge of the river and I drowned, so it was very miserable. On my second attempt, I was a carpenter, because one of the main issues that I had is that my wagon kept breaking down, and at several points on my journey, I had to just stay there until someone passed by, and then hopefully they want to trade for a piece of a spare part for the wagon, because I needed that to continue my journey. It was usually the wheel, by the way, and I lost like many days. Like the winter came and it was awful. But in this case, I had a plan. I had a camper there, so that wouldn't be a problem anymore. And also, I only survived by hunting. I had to hunt a lot, don't get me wrong. But I was able to give filling meals to everyone. And no one got sick. Like, I think someone broke the leg or their arm, one of those. And someone contracted cholera. And the worst other thing that happened is, Felipe, because he was only 1 and 2 on my party, is tired. Like, okay, we're going to rest like a couple of days. That was the worst that happened. Like, Felipe was tired. Made it through the minigame. This time, realized it was a minigame, and survived and arrived to Oregon. And everyone was happy, lived happily ever after. That is my completion. It was a very short game, though an intense one, especially on the first run. It is available on browser. Like, you can just look up the Oregon Trail, and this is actually the 1985 version, which, by the way, I think the HowLongToBeat page has kind of like the game scrambled in a way, because I think the one that is listed in HowLongToBeat is the 1978 version, but the game, like the cover art, is from the 1985 version. Does it make any difference? I don't know. But anyway, this is way too long for such a small game, so Alex, take it away.
Sure. Yeah, Oregon Trail, man. That's the one that... Also, I feel like... I don't know. The whole time you were talking, I was like... My whole brain was like, I don't know how to say any American states. Like, I'm sure there's a bunch of them listening in right now. Because like you're saying it, and I was like, is it Oregon? Oregon? Illinois. I was like, oh my God. So sorry, Americans, if you're listening. You're listening to a podcast with two people who live in the Americas and a Brit. So we have no idea.
Yeah, like, I'm sure I butcher like the name of the states, or like the name of the state.
Totally, I don't know. Correct. I have no idea. That's my whole point. Not that
And
it matters.
also, sidebar, there's a beautiful irony that Paola's been playing the Died of Dysentery game while she's unwell.
Ta-da!
The original
Anyway.
hardcore roguelite. All right, so
it is a 4D game.
yeah, that game's intense. We played that all the time as a kid in school because it was one of the few games you could get on browser. Anyway, so I beat 2 games. Really, it's 1 game and a DLC. I beat The Case of the Golden Idol. Which, have any of you heard of this game?
Yes, it's
Yeah.
It got a shout out by Luke, whatever his name is, the Curse of the Obra Dinn guy, Papers Please guy.
Oh, Lucas
Luke
Pope?
Thomas is it? That one, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. That's great. Well, it makes sense actually. So you know how I said I didn't buy anything in the Steam sale? Fuck. Bought something
He
in the Steam
lied.
sale. Yeah. Well, just afterwards. Though it's this game is cheap anyway, but was even cheaper with the sale. It's probably still on sale, but maybe by the time you're listening to this, the Steam sale is probably done.
Definitely done. It
Yeah.
finishes on the 13th. We're recording on the 11th.
Is that it? Okay, then it's over by now. But anyway, this game, it's a point and click mystery, but really unique. So it has this very like, the only way I can describe it is like grotesque pixel art, where like everybody's very like looking. Like imagine The Secret of Monkey Island with like its exaggerated pixel portraits, but that's just like everybody all the time. And like that's really what you're looking at, and it's like chunky pixel drawings, and they're beautiful and really fun, but very chunky. And so the way this works is that you're a detective in a sense. Like it's not actually clear who you are. Like you're not really a character. You're just like engaging in these tableaus, and you have 2 phases. You have exploring and thinking. And the way this works is that you collect words that are in these scenes, and so you're capturing moments, and it's usually around murders. Usually, sometimes there's other things that you're seeing, and it's set in sort of like an alternate, like 17th, 18th century. No, I think it's the 1700s. Yes, it's the 1700s, so 18th century. I believe it might straddle the 2 of them, but either way, it deals a lot with like, like these shipping companies, and there is this thing called the Golden Idol, and this is what you're tracking. You're tracking its journey, and my God, is it cool! So, in the exploring phase, that's when you're looking at these tableaus, and I'm not going to talk at all about the story because this is one that like straight up you just have to go in and experience, because truly the joy of this is it all clicking. Because this is one of those, you know how like you play some point and clicks or mystery games, and like by the end of it, you're just like, I don't really know what's going on. Like, for example, Immortality, as much as I absolutely so love that game, it's incredible, I didn't know what the fuck was going on by the end of it. I constructed an idea of what I thought was going on, but I didn't know. This game, without spoon feeding it to you, you understand what happened, and the way it clicks is so fucking satisfying. You feel like a detective. You're like, oh, that's what this is. And you're like, holy shit. And like they give you just the right amount of information to fully understand what was going on. So really, really awesome. To be clear, both sort of ideas are totally valid. It's just like, it's fun to play a game that makes you feel like a smart detective. Now, in the exploring section, they also do this thing that I think is just chef's kiss, where they're like, recommended when you start. They're like, we recommend that you play with clickable items highlighted, because they've designed it so that all the items you can click and all the words you can press are pre-highlighted when you start playing, so that you don't have to pixel hunt. Now, if you want to, which I do not in the slightest recommend, you can play without the highlighting and go pixel hunting. But that sounds to me like the stupidest fucking decision a human being could make. And because the reason too is that the finding the things, that's not the point, right? The point isn't struggling to find the words that you're going to use. The point is that the finding of them unravels what's happening and develops your understanding. So I can't even almost zero recommendation of playing without that highlighted. Even if you love that shit, don't do it. I think it would probably actually ruin the experience. And and you'll just dislike the game, and you'll have no one to blame but yourself. That's my big intense warning. And the developer literally designed it to be played this way. Like they said, like, please play with the highlighting on. But they give you that option in case you're a masochist. Now, in the exploring, that's where you're clicking through and you're like going to different locations, and you're kind of you're in a singular moment. It's like a moment frozen in time. And so you're kind of looking in this tableau and you're finding things. Then when you click over to the thinking tab, you're presented with a screen that has a number of different things. Sometimes it'll have the faces of the characters in the scenes, and you'll have a word bank at the bottom. And what your job is to place all of them in the correct slots. Now, you'll have separate slots though, right? Like the most common one is that one that I just mentioned. I don't want to talk about other ones because they get spoilery, but the one that is most common is figure out everybody in the scene. Now, the thing is, that's one section. And that one section, when completed correctly, it'll turn green and it'll say like all slots are filled in correctly. And now you know that information, which can help you to solve the other sections. Like one might say, you know, blank did this to blank did this, which resulted in blank, blah, 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 right? And so you have to fill in names, actions, objects, right? Into those slots to figure out what happened in this moment. Now, you can brute force it a little bit, not entirely. Like near the end of it, you can kind of brute force it. But I actually think that's by design, because even if you're not actually sure how to have figured out like what happened, like you're like, oh, I didn't actually fully figure this out, the later puzzles are going to reference back and they're going to actually help you learn and figure out what happened. So it's quite smart in the way that it does that. Because I got through, there was like a couple of them where I slightly guessed the last thing, but then later on I realized, that is how that happened. Okay. And like, I was like, oh, I see. And it all sort of connects in. And it is a mini game within it of like, which ones do you fill out first? Because there might be one that only has like 4 things that have to be filled in. So you do that one first, and then it helps you figure out this one, and it's all connected, right? But the clues to solving them are all in these documents and items that you can open up and look at, and you can cross-reference, and you can find all these things. And it unravels this really like wild story. That's very, very fun. So yeah, that is the gist of the game, frankly. It's a puzzle game where the puzzle is, figuring out what's happening based on a very limited set of clues. And it happens in this sort of chronology where you get to, you see this golden idol when it is discovered. The very opening is you figuring out someone who was killed, to the very end, which I won't talk about. Cannot recommend it enough. This is a puzzle game for people who don't like puzzle games and people who love puzzle games. Because this is one of those games where I think it is so unique and so different, and really removes all of that. Like, there's no moon logic in this at all. Like, this is not one of those things where it's like, oh, you have to like guess some crazy shit. No, it is all extremely logically constructed. And the logic is extremely like coherent within its world. Now, there are things in here that might not be like our world kind of stuff, but anything that is not, it is very not necessarily, clearly laid out, frankly, and is internally consistent. So when you think you figured something out, you're like, wait a minute, I saw in the earlier scene that this thing happened. Wouldn't that mean that then this would happen? And the game's like, good job, that's great, yeah, you got it. I'm like, oh, sick. Like it rewards your logical detective work. So I think, Rick, you would really like this, because like I know you've talked about things like Phoenix Wright and stuff, like, and like disliking how like like this is one of those games where I'm like, no, it all connects so perfectly together, and Paula, you'd love it too. It's one of these games where I'm like, it's all so in like internally consistent that it feels really like, it feels very satisfying. You're like, yeah, okay, all this makes sense.
And it's been wishlisted. It didn't make the cut this time, but it will eventually.
Oh yeah, I'm sure this will keep going on sale and stuff. And like, this is one that I'd like. This is one of those ones I look at where I was like, yeah, you'll probably play this eventually. It did make me think of Return of the Obra Dinn, actually, where it's like, it's really kind of, it's similar to that game in some ways, right? Like in that game where you're like figuring out what has happened and you're like trying to like solve and like put all this stuff together. It's a lot like that. Just, I actually think that Obra Dinn, as much as I absolutely love it, is easier to get lost in than this one is. This one is a bit more, a little more straightforward, to help you from feeling too overwhelmed. Also, the hint system in this is fantastic. they have a hint system where they're like, I really don't recommend you do this, but I used some of the hints and I actually didn't think the hints gave away much at all. But what they do is they like, you have to solve like a little puzzle, and the puzzle is actually reaffirming your knowledge of people and things in the game, because you have to drag names to like and label things appropriately. So sometimes it's actually reinforcing your understanding of the game. And then they'll give you like 4 little chests that you can click, that'll give like a sort of coded message that usually just guides you to the right train of thought. It won't give you an answer, but it will put you on the right logic path, which I needed a couple times. Also, another thing, this game really benefits from frequent breaks. They even say it in the game. They're like, before accessing the hints, maybe you should just shut down for a little bit and come back. And I found that actually helped a lot. Like, I remember one night I had unlocked a bunch, and then I was like, okay, I gotta stop because there's a lot of logic. I like slept on it, and when I came back in the morning, it was just like suddenly it was all there, and I was like, I know exactly what I gotta do. So it really benefits from that. So that's the case of the Golden Idol. I won't actually talk that much about the next one because I beat also Golden Idol Mysteries, the Spider of Lanka. Oh, also it's a very short game. On How Long to Beat, it puts it around like 6 or so hours. I beat it in like 4 maybe. Like I beat it pretty fast. It's not that long. It's a short game. Golden Idol, but it depends. If you like, I'm gonna be honest here, it depends on your ability to do puzzle games a little bit, right? Like for some, this game could be like fucking eons long. But I think it holds your hand enough. And here's the nice thing. This is a puzzle game that I never, ever once had to go look for a walkthrough. And it still felt challenging and enjoyable. And that, to me, is really satisfying because it meant that things were internally consistent and I didn't have to just go, like, fucking around the whole time.
Interestingly, this one has a Switch port.
Oh, yeah? It'd probably be good on Switch.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like this is the kind of game, tell me if I'm wrong, that would benefit from a mouse.
It benefits from a mouse big time. I mean, if it's touchscreen supported on Switch, then it would be fantastic.
It's not clear. It's got a very, very thin description on Deku.
Probably isn't, though.
Yeah, it's probably not. If it's not, then I would not do that. I think it would be tedious.
No.
Well,
that's my minding also.
Yeah, I think it would probably be tedious because you'd have to be flicking down to things. PC, it's so quick and fast, and it's just it's a PC game. Golden Idol Mysteries, The Spider of Lanka, is a DLC they released that's actually very cheap, and it was on sale too. So I was like, all right. And I don't grab out the DLC. I'm super glad I did. It's actually a prologue, like a prequel to the game that you must play second though, because it will spoil the game. Well, actually, does it spoil the game? It kind of does. It kind of spoils parts of the game. And it's very satisfying to play afterwards because it actually fills in a little bit of information that and it expands the world a bit. Like, also, it's just like, it's more of this game. And because they're calling it Golden Idol Mysteries, I'm like, please, for the love of God, give me more of these. Please give me more. Like, it's so good. It's one of those ones where I was like, damn it, it was only like 2 hours long. And I was like, shit, I want more. But they're pretty complex and very layered logic puzzles. So I see why there's not a lot. You know what I mean? Like, it's like this probably took a fuck ton of time just to get this part right. So yeah, anyway, that's the 2 that I played. And they're amazing. These are like they were 10 out of 10 games for me. Like, these are, as far as like the type of game this is, it's perfect. I have no notes. I have no idea what you can make better. Like, it's just honestly, like, for me, it was a flawless experience. Also because it kept me in the game the whole time, you know? Like, I never had to go elsewhere, which is such a rare thing for puzzle games these days. And yet I never felt like it was too easy or something. It was actually quite challenging. But they just gave me just enough to figure it out on my own. And it was so satisfying to figure it out on my own that I didn't want to figure other things out. Like a game that I'm playing at the moment, I've looked up tons of shit because I'm just like, fuck, where do I? Oh, okay, there we go. Which Rick knows exactly what I'm talking about. Because it's fine, but it's not great. Anyway, that's it for me. Rick, speaking of you, why don't you tell us what you're playing?
Yeah, so I've beaten 2 games. They're both games that I was on the cusp of beating last week. I've not played a lot this week. I've been here, there, and everywhere, but I have finished these 2. Nuts is the first one. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I think as a short experience trying to create a feeling, give you a novel way of interacting with a game world, I think it absolutely succeeds. Definitely glad I picked this up on Switch rather than playing it on Apple Arcade, which is where it originally was. I'm not sure it necessarily is a game that very well suited that setup. And in fact, I suspect it would have been slightly better again on PC, but it's very, very playable on Switch. Again, to reiterate for anyone who can't remember a week ago or missed last week, how dare you? The game revolves around a loop of you setting up trap cameras and then watching the footage back to see what the squirrels have been up to, where they're hiding their stash, where they've come from, where they're going. The game has a very unique art style, which is both helpful because it contrasts the squirrel against its surroundings. It gives each area a strong sense of identity because the color palette shifts both day to night, but also from location to location. And for a game with a very straightforward setup and a very limited set of interaction options, it managed to surprise me a few times. It plays around with its concept and what it's asking you to do and what you're expecting from the scenario. The story wasn't fantastic. It was kind of obvious the direction it was going in for the most part. But again, in terms of building an atmosphere and creating a believable sort of miniature pocket of a world, I think it absolutely succeeded. And I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It's one that I played in sort of dribs and drabs. When I wasn't playing it, I was often thinking about it. Absolutely worth checking out. Had a fantastic time with this one. The second one, not so much. So I finished the multimedium partially out of obligation. I have to say, in the game's defense, it does bring some more ideas to the table in the second half, mechanically speaking. There's portions where you are riding animals. There's a brief passage where you're given a grappling hook. There are little fetch quests and tasks and things. The problem is the game is so pretentious. So it's an artist who decided to put their art to a video game. There's no hiding that, and certainly the artist and the creative behind the game is very upfront about that fact. But God knows they didn't need to be, because it is brutally, painfully obvious, and it is very much to the game's detriment. I think the art's quite good. There are a couple of points, particularly there's a collage world towards the back end of the game, which narratively has some importance, but also just visually was very striking, both within the context of the game as a whole, but also just generally, I think it's a really cool look for a game. And I only wish that this artist had teamed up with a few people who know how to make an engaging game and could have maybe given them some notes about having an ending to a story rather than just finishing up in a place, which is kind of what happened. And I that is a little bit glib. There is something that they were going for, but again, it's very, very wanky. It's very lacking in substance. It's a bit of a meringue plot, and I didn't like it. The game itself is fine, TM, but there's a million better platformers you could play, and the unique thing that this game brings to the table, you could get from looking at the screenshots on its Steam page. There's no reason to play this game.
It's funny because it makes me think, like, I don't know if the style is anything like this, but when thinking about games where it's like the art is sort of the first point, it's like it makes me think of The Artful Escape a little bit, where like that was a game wherein the art was sort of the biggest point, but they got a series of people who know how to make a fucking game behind it. So it's like the game itself feels fun, even if you can tell as you're playing it that you're like, well, the game part isn't like, it's not the first and foremost most important thing. It's just that it's engaging and enjoyable, so you can actually engage with this cool art that they've made.
And that's the rub. A game can lead with its art and its visuals. God knows some of my favorite games absolutely do that. That's fine if you're backing that art up with a gameplay. If you're not, what you ought to be making is a film or a work in a different medium. If you're not going to back that up with some kind of tangible gameplay or player input, you shouldn't be making a video game. And this is an artist who in the way that they did it, probably the video game wasn't the best way to do what they were trying to do, which is a shame.
This reminds me of my life as a theater director, and I can't tell you how many plays I would read that I was like, this isn't a goddamn play. You wrote a fucking screenplay. Like,
And
the
now you
amount
want to
of,
do it on a stage. Yeah.
right? Yeah. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, it's just like, stop writing screenplays for the stage. Fuck, just go write screenplays.
And speaking of stopping doing things, Alex, what's the game that you stopped playing, aka retired,
Oh, yeah.
this week?
There's not really an interesting story behind this all that much. I just retired Haiku the robot, mostly because like I was having enough fun, but I could already tell, like, okay, you know, when like Metroidvanias like this, where it's like you really have to remember the map, right? Like you got to remember where you are, because like that's sort of the point. Well, I paused for a few days from playing this, and I went and picked it back up and went, fuck. I was like, oh shit, I don't remember where I am, and this is gonna be a pain in the ass. So I was like, yeah, I'm good. I also think I kind of got what I wanted from it. I have so many Metroidvanias out there that it's like, I don't think I want to beat this one. I think I just sort of wanted to play it a little bit and experience it. And it's cute and seems kind of fun. But it's not really, it wasn't really giving me anything sort of special that made me want to like keep going. And I could already tell that I was gonna get confused. It wasn't always clear like where you can access things, and I was like, oh shit, this is gonna get more annoying before it gets maybe better. So I'm like, I think I'm just gonna bounce now. Plus I had 2 other games that I wanted to start and try, so I was just kind of like, all right, adios amigos. But nothing really like superbly against the game. It just seems to me like it's kind of a like a fine Metroidvania, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing like inherently wrong with it. I wouldn't say that it's bad per se. I'd just say that it's a little hard to justify in a world of just so many massively incredible games without a little something to kind of pull me in. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's it. Still, if you got that, you know, that Metroidvania bundle, I would still recommend trying it, because the aesthetic is pretty wonderful, and that might kind of pull you in. Though that is also one of the reasons why I dropped it, because I was a little worried. In Metroidvanias, oftentimes the environments are part of the thing that actually helps your brain keep track of where stuff is, because the varied environments sort of, which is actually something I'll speak to in the game that I'm playing. The environments give you this like this sense of like, oh, okay, I remember that part of the world because it looks like XYZ, right? Like it's just another thing that helps. Whereas Haiku the robot, it all looks the same. There's obviously some variation, but like the color palette is entirely the same at each point, which isn't always a problem, right? Like Gato Roboto is like that, but that's a very small game. And this one I actually think is a little bit bigger. Like I was looking at the map and I was like, oh, this is kind of big. And this might become a bit of a beige blob for me as I go through. So yeah, at the moment where I retired it, it was hovering around like a pretty solid and like confident sort of 7-ish for me. But I think that's probably where it sits. It's like a 7-hour game, which might be a little long for what it's got there. And its combat is like the same all the time, pretty much, which is what it is. Anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Have you played this one, Rick, or are you just interested in playing this one?
Demo I've played. Game I would like to play. It's very, very low priority. I've got it wishlisted on Switch and on Steam, but it will have to get pretty heavily discounted before I take the plunge. Again, there's a million games like it, unfortunately, and it's what I played of it was fun. The demo was solid, but there wasn't something that made me think I have to play this now.
Yeah.
And I mean, off the top of my head, I've got Kunai that I got free from Amazon to play. I've got Flint Hook that I desperately want to play.
Oh yeah, me too. I gotta play that.
Yeah, I've started it twice and thoroughly enjoyed it both times, and then just stopped both times, and I couldn't possibly tell you why. I mean, even in the latest Steam sale, I picked up Rusted Moss, which looks phenomenal, and it's got a couple of unique things that it's doing that make me want to jump into it. And there just isn't anything like that in Haiku the Robot that makes it a must play now. It's a might play someday.
Yeah.
So
well, why don't we jump into what we're all playing at the moment?
And I'll do that really quickly because I've got almost nothing to say.
Oh,
so
right.
I've had a busy week. So in a very unusual turn for me, I've got almost no progress on any of my playing games, obviously outside the 2 I've completed. I have not carried on playing any of the following: Final Fantasy VII Remake for PS4, Radiant Historia for DS, Klonoa Moonlight Museum for WonderSwan by way of an emulator on the PSP, or Jack Bros on Virtual Boy, although I have done a little bit of Googling on that one, and it looks like I'm actually 60% of the way through the game, so I'm pretty confident that will be beaten by the time we next talk. The 2 games that I have made some progress with are firstly, the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for PS2. This game is pretty dog shit. It hurts to admit, but it is actually quite shit. But I'm really enjoying it. So, case in point.
What a turnaround from last week.
Oh, no. It's great for me because I have a nostalgic connection to this game. If you're coming to this as just a video game, you will not have a good time. I'm pretty certain of that. There's a couple of things that we've just had to go and watch a long play of to work out what the game actually expected us to do. There's a degree of jank in the most recent bit we played. There was a stealth mission, or at least a portion of the mission that was stealth, and it barely qualified as stealth. And what you're actually expected to do, and this wasn't very clear initially, is use one of the character's abilities to, assuming you destroyed this random bit of scenery. If you hadn't, you wouldn't necessarily spot it, but use this ability to highlight a special spot on the ground where you can play a Sleepy Go Bye-Bye song on the panpipes. And you have to do that when the guard is close enough that it will hit them. And then you have to get the fuck on, but not too far on, because then you might cross the threshold of a different guard. Instead, you have to wait and fire arrows at the top of his tent until he decides he might turn around and take a look at the tent for a minute. And then you can run on. It's dumb. It's dumb. It's really, really dumb. But because I've got nostalgia for it, and especially in co-op, it is a reasonably okay time. And I'm pretty confident that we'll finish it because we're on level 12 of 15, I believe, now. So there's not a lot left to do. But God loves we're doing it. And then one new game that I've just started, and I've literally just started. I can't have played more than 10 minutes, so I've not got too much to say about it yet. A little 2D roguelike called Revita on Switch. This is a somewhat novel spin on the roguelite formula. Its thing is that to get upgrades, you have to trade portions of your life bar. So you might have 4 hearts and you get to a shrine, and there are different rewards you can get for trading half a heart, 1 full heart, 2 full hearts. As you defeat enemies, you fill a gauge that you can then use to do a move to generate more health. So there's a constant risk reward of how much do I think I can manage to avoid taking hits, and is it worth that extra challenge for the upgrade that I'm going to get. Initial impressions are the pixel art is brilliant. Not sort of 10 out of 10 earth-shaking, but really, really good. Combat feels fluid. I'm not necessarily sure that the twin sticks of the Switch are the happiest way to play it, but time will tell. We'll see how that goes. And there's even in this early stage little hints at a little bit more of a story, which will be, I hope, revealed as I play more. But early signs are very, very positive, which is a relief because I picked this up on a whim months and months and months ago. And only now am I starting to play it. So I feel like past me might have made a good impulse choice, but we'll see. That's it. Paula, go ahead. Tell us about what you've got going on.
Okay, so the start of this gaming week, it started with a tragedy, a scared. It was that I turned my copy of my Omega flash drive, and my save for Pokemon Emerald was corrupted. And that was a 24-hour save at that point. So that made me very, very sad. So instead of being a normal person and just taking the loss and saying, hey, maybe this is a time for me to retire the game, maybe I should play other games that are in my backlog, I went ahead and started to look into the problem and see if I could do anything to fix it or to recover my save. And there was a way to do it. First of all, I needed to move the save to my PC and get a PK Hex, which is usually a tool for hacking on games and like kind of like creating Pokemon for competitive play back in the day. And it is still being used today, though it is used for like all of the Pokemon games, I think. Like you can generate any Pokemon that you want for the game, and you can check if it's legal and all that stuff. In this case, I was able to check, first of all, if my save file was truly beyond saving, which thank God it wasn't, because I was able to look at the Pokemon that were on my PC box and the Pokemon that were on my party. So, with that little sliver of hope, I just went on and messed around with it a little bit. Did some checks according to various guides on the internet. I just messed around until it worked. And lo and behold, the save file is back. I recovered it. Which, by the way, Rick and Alex knew beforehand that this happened because I cried about it in our little chat that we have for the podcast. So
you said you had a
they
mishap. I just realized what you meant, and I was like, "Oh no!"
Well, I knew exactly what you were talking about because, like, I had gone through this before. I was like, I know what's happening.
Yeah. So I was so happy that I recovered because at that point in time when I lost my save initially, I had the Pokeblocks to do the thing that I talked about like a couple of weeks ago, where I duplicated my save. I used my boyfriend's what's the name of the thing? Omega Drive, whatever it's called, the flashcard for the GBA.
Oh dear.
Yeah,
I can't think of the name of it, but yeah.
Yeah, connected both of the. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just telling you to go on. This is going straight out on the edit.
That was more Canadian than anything I've ever done on this podcast. No, you go. No, you go. No, you go.
Oh my god. Okay, so I connected both of the GBAs, and it was very weird having like the duplicate save because it was the same exact party of both of them. But anyway, I made the Pokeblocks. I fed my Fivas, Marina, all the Pokeblocks in the world, the Indigo Pokeblocks in the world, and managed to max out its beauty and make her evolve into a Milotic. So that crusade is over. Now what? Then I went to train a little bit my Pokemon because they were a little bit underleveled. They still are. And Truffle evolved into Freedom, so now I have like all the HM slaves. I mean, all the HM just in my party without having to resort to an HM slave. A little bit later, I got the H8 for Dive. And this one was another one of those that you can miss because I actually went through like the whole C portion of Hoenn and didn't realize that I missed like one house after a certain event to be able to get Dive. So I had to look up a guide. It was like, hey, I've been there before. Oh, but I had to go there after defeating, I think it was Team Magma that was like whipping around there. So I got dive, so I was able to chase the other team, Team Aqua, to the seafloor cavern, and lo and behold, they woke up Kyogre, and then I had to go to the Sky Pillar to get Rayquaza to make them stop, pretty much. So that's one story thread over in Pokemon Emerald. So in Stopolis, I went to get the HM for Waterfall after stopping the other two, and went to the Zootopolis gym, which, by the way, it's all covered in ice, but the gym itself, like the trainers, all have water Pokemon, so I don't know. And also, okay, so let's recap a little bit. We have Flannery from the fire type team. We have Winona from the flying type team. And then we have Juan, just Juan, from the water type team.
You don't
And
need
it's
more
like-
than that. Just one.
Yeah, the thing is that every other... Oh my god. Why, Rick? Every other gym leader up to that point has a name like based on the type they're representing, like Watson, like Watts, but Watson, or like Norman from the normal type gym. And then you have Juan. Sorry, but it is stupidly funny to me for some reason, but I don't know. It's also like a more like, it doesn't fit with the rest because it's more like a Latin American name or like a Spanish name or anything but a name that like fits with the rest of them. So it was kind of funny. Sorry for all the Juans in the world out there. I have a friend named Juan. He's amazing, but
I was gonna say there's a lot of Juans.
But-
I taught a lot of Juans this year.
yeah,
But
but
no
still,
twos.
like, stop it.
I knew that was coming. I knew you couldn't stop at Juan.
You know, I've been Juan up.
There you go.
I'm stating this one out.
Hey! Oh god, this is never gonna
end. Anyway, so right now I'm just training my team before the Elite Four because I'm like at that point in the game right now. I have all 8 chip matches, so hopefully I have this one finished by... Oh my god, that's terrible. I have this one finished by next week, hopefully. So right now the team is Mango the Swampert, Cotton the Altaria, Lemonade the Brava, Naraka the Gardevoir, Marina the Milotic, and Truffle the Realm. Until the next game, had a full boyfriend. Actually, like in the second round of the game, which is, I forgot the name of this, but John, that is the... Let me check real quick my notes. Did I not write the name down? Nageki. Yeah, Nageki. Which is the dove at the library. And the way you enter the route is just like befriending him by working at the library, because you could join a club activity or like work somewhere in the school, like the infirmary or the library. So I went to the library because why not? And yeah, I'm just at the start of his route, so I have not a lot to say, but I do remember more than a little bit of this route. Anyway, and the last game that I just started, or just restarted because it is a childhood game, it is Warcraft 3: The Reign of Chaos. And oh my gosh, this brings back memories. Because I was pretty much addicted to this game, to Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos, and the Frozen Throne. And I'm currently on the tutorial of the game that is the Pearl campaign, the Exodus of the Earth. Very much like, more or less like in Chasing Visions of Departures, right? They're like the very start of the Exodus of the Earth thing. And the thing is that I had to install it digitally because I realized that I was able to download it directly. Like I had the game physical, and I like activated the keys on the Blizzard Battle.net page. And since then, I've been able to download the game digitally, and because of that, I kind of like have Warcraft 3 Reforged, but I don't have it. Like I have the launcher for it, and like the selection for the chapters is like Reforged, but everything else, like the cinematics, the graphics, the audio, the everything is the original Warcraft 3 experience, and I love it. So I was actually split between saying I'm playing Reforged, but I'm not really playing Reforged because it's not the Reforged. Whatever. It is Warcraft 3, and I love it. Last time I played it, though, that was a while ago when I first played the campaign. I didn't finish it. I actually was like in the first third of the Frozen Throne campaign, which is the Sentimental campaign, and I don't remember much of it. What I do remember, like very clearly, is up to the human undead campaign. I think it was, yeah, it was the human campaign because it is so fucking iconic, and it is such an important part of the Warcraft like universe, I'm gonna say, because it is where the Frozen King came from, and their story, I think, is expanded on like the Frozen Creek World of Warcraft thing. But whatever. Enough of me nerding out about I don't know how many years old this game is, but enough of me nerding out about it for now. Next week is gonna be a different story. So Rick. No, Alex. Rick already said their piece.
I was gonna say, I think
Alex.
Rick's already talked. Yeah. So
I'll go again then.
Yeah. I haven't played a lot more of Star Wars Jedi. Jedi Survivor. I'm still playing it. It's still great. It's just I haven't really been like sitting at my TV a lot. Basically, I started teaching online again for the summer because like my job that I thought I lost over the summer suddenly got money and was like, "Can you teach in the mornings?" And I was like, "Sure." So just picking up some extra dough that way. But that kind of has like eaten up a little bit more of my time. Plus, you know, wedding prep and everything. It's been a little busy here. So I've mostly been playing sort of things that I can do on my PC pretty, you know, quickly or easily, or stuff that I can sort of sit in front of the TV with my partner and play. So yeah, Jedi Survivor has kind of gone on the back burner. Gonna obviously still play through it and beat it, but it's probably gonna take a little longer. Definitely won't be beaten before the end of this this podcast. I'll say that much. I did start Transiruby though. Transiruby. I think that's what I'm gonna call it. I don't know how to say it.
Go with that.
This is one that isn't this by the makers of Chemico? Is that the ones who made this?
It certainly is. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
So I remember we played this demo in a Steam Next Fest like a long time ago. And I really dug that demo. Like there was something about the like feel of the characters and like the trying to find these little, you know, diamondy things that you're looking for throughout, which is a terrible way of describing it, but you essentially look for little chips that you have to get in the levels. And there's basically, I think there's 4 worlds that you go through. I'm only on the 3rd one right now. At least my map shows 4. There might be more. I don't know. Yeah, it's a little Metroidvania where like I know Rick's been sort of saying that it's like sort of not, but like it's literally a Metroidvania. I don't know. Like
it's pretty damn linear. That's the thing.
Yeah, but
I
all
feel like it's more an action
Metroidvanias
platformer.
pretend that they're not linear, but they're all linear because they lock off where you can go. And that's the same with this game, where it's like you develop upgrades, but you have to backtrack to go to different areas, and then there are secrets hidden throughout that you can unlock. So like I don't know. Now I will agree with you that it's certainly on the scale of linearity to like non-linearity with Metroidvanias, it certainly skews closer to linearity. It reminds me a bit of Guacamelee, which is like, I would argue pretty linear in its progression systems, where it's like, you know what I mean? Like you unlock a thing, it destroys the type of block that's getting you in the way, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So I think they're both transparent in different ways. Guacamelee absolutely is just like coloured block, coloured hole.
Yeah.
But it's more of a totally open map that you're going across and back and across and back. Transiruby is very much, although you can technically go back to all the old places, there's a couple of very, very minor reasons you might. Otherwise, it's basically a linear curve through, as I remember it.
I find you have to go back to the other places a lot. Like they're usually making you jump back and forth between the worlds a fair bit.
Maybe I'm misremembering. I feel like it when I played it, I got the feeling it was a linear platformer.
Yeah, okay.
With a semi-open structure, but we're splitting hairs here, really.
That's fair. Yeah. Anyway, look, I'll just say that my experience so far is that there's a lot of backtracking in this, and they give you little shortcuts to sort of get through that. Is this a great game? Like, I don't know. Like, not really, but like, it really hits this like itch for me that's really nice. Where like, I will say, it controls very well. Like, it is smooth as shit. And, like, you land exactly where you want to land. Like, that's one thing I will say for it. It's also, like, it's not hard, like, combat-wise. You know? Like, not at all, really. Because literally they give you this weapon where you can freeze an enemy and instant kill it. Which is awesome, because there's a trade-off where it's, like, you can either... Because if you do that, you have a chance to get health back. Whereas if you don't, if you just kill them normally, you get this sort of green... power up that actually allows you to shoot that gun to then kill things. Enemies also respawn after you just like move, like it parallax scrolls. So like once you move away and come back, the enemies are back. So you're never too far away from the resources you need, essentially. The chips that you're collecting are not optional. It's like you have to get all of them. The map is very clear. I remember when we played the demo where I actually wasn't sure I loved the map. But I think there might have been a feature that they either added or I didn't realize you could do, where like you can press a button and the map can either be totally blank, or if you press a button, it overlays all of the terrain on it, which I was like, oh, fuck, that's helpful. Because I was like, nice. And they have a bunch of different things. Like it's like one part of the map will show you where all the chips are. And whenever you enter a new area, it's just like, here's where they all are. Not exactly where, but like, the approximate block that they're in. Here's where all the transporters are. Here's where all the like fast travel locations are, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I have definitely had to look at a walkthrough. And like, there's no real walkthroughs, but I just looked at a long play once just to get an idea of like, where do I gotta go here? There was one particular area that I got tripped up in, and it was when they introduced like 2 new worlds that I started to get a little like, because it's not clear that you actually have to go back at first, because for a long time, and this actually might be sort of what you're talking about, Rick, for the first sort of opening, by the time you get to the second world, the game has really functioned on this like keep moving forward, you'll find what you need. And then it hits a very sudden, actually, no, you need to go back and look for things. When you get a new power up, you should actually go back and figure things out, because a lot of times what you need is going to be in an older location. Once I got that in my brain, now everything has moved forward very smoothly, and it hasn't been that challenging, because it's like, oh, I get it. If I'm missing something, just go look at back in the other place that I've been. It'll be fine. And so now I've been okay. Like at this point now I'm in the third world and I've been just moving fine, and I haven't really needed to look up anything. It definitely relies a lot on your memory of where you are and like what's going on. You really have to like map out in your mind with how these places connect and intersect. You get some pretty cool upgrades. Some of them are like fairly straightforward, but there are a number of them actually that I did not expect, that I was like, oh shit, that's actually pretty cool. Like you can turn into a freaking motorcycle, which is very fun, and just zip across everything. I often forget I can do it, and I'm like, I gotta keep doing this because it's fun and fast. So yeah, like, is it a perfect Metroidvania? Certainly not. Like Rick is right that it definitely skews, and I suppose so. Like, it's not linear in the sense that you're not going from point A to point B. Like, don't put that in your brain because you'll fuck yourself up. But it is linear in the sense that, like, then again, but this is kind of like all Metroidvanias. Well, I guess, okay, where a game like Metroid can sequence break, right? I don't think you can do that in this. Maybe you can, and I just don't know how, but I don't think it's possible. It has some pretty hard checks in it. And that's where it's more like Guacamelee, where it's like there are just things that you just cannot get through, and you're just going to have to complete these zones to do that. I don't think it detracts from the game, but I think it's something that is important to know getting into it, that like this is the type of Metroidvania experience that you're in for. It's beautiful. It's very pretty. And I don't know. I really like it. It's like it's hitting this this itch that I've had with Metroidvanias, where it's like I want something that's like not overly complex, but also not so brain dead that I'm like just like kind of like, you know, trudging from one place to the next. And that's what this game is sort of hitting for me. Music's fun, though. Honestly, I don't often play listening to it that much, just because I have it on my Switch Lite and I'm just kind of watching TV. I've been watching The Bear, actually, season 2, which is so fucking good. But I'll play this while watching, and yeah, good game. Anyway,
Scratches an itch. I think you put it perfectly when you said it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, right? It's not a game that I would like shout from the rooftops and be like, everybody has to go play this. It's just more like a thing where I'm like, this is exactly what I needed right now. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not to like shit on the devs, right? Like they did a good job. Like it's just that it's not like, I think even they knew what they're making. You know what I mean? Like it does not overextend its reach at all. It knows exactly what it is, and it executes on that. Okay. Last game that I started. This one actually reminded, because you were talking about the art style of some goddamn game you were playing. I don't know which one it was. Maybe it was it Nuts? I don't know. Like oh, you're muted, Rick. What was it?
You're muted.
Sort of the Vagrant.
Sort of the Vagrant. Yeah. So Tales of Iron. Think of Tales of Iron is like 2D Dark Souls if Dark Souls was Redfall. Like that's like what it, if people remember Redfall. Do you remember Redfall? Those
okay, I wish I didn't remember Redfall, but let's take a couple of steps back after that. There's a lot to unpack there.
It's 2D Dark Souls, but with rats and animals, anthropomorphic animals in a medieval grungy setting. Basically,
where does Redfall come into any of that?
Well, Redfall is all about rats in a medieval setting. And there's lots of death. Red.
You're the vampire game that's just came out.
You're thinking of a different one.
There's multiple Redfalls.
Yeah, unless I'm doing the wrong. Oh shit! No! It's not Redfall. Damn it! What is it called? Red Wall.
Dishonored.
Red Wall. That's it.
Oh, okay.
Not Redfall. Sorry, Red Wall. Have you heard of this one? They're early child sort of fantasy novels that were like wildly violent. I do know
exactly what you mean. They're like rats, but they go sailing. It's like weird. Yeah.
Yeah, and like they're medieval rats, right? And they're like there's like all these fights and stuff, and yeah, there's like wizards and everything.
Brian Jack, yeah, I do know what you're talking about.
Sorry, yeah,
and that analogy makes a little bit more sense now.
Yeah, that should make a lot more. Yeah, that should make a lot more sense. Yeah, honestly, it feels like. Yeah. Because Redwall was already like kind of intense, to be honest. Like it dealt with some pretty high, like some pretty intense themes for a children's fantasy series.
Novels, yeah.
Yeah. And this one, it's just like, imagine if you grew up reading Redwall, and then we're like, why don't we just fully lean into the horrific medieval aspect of this? And that's what it does. It's pretty fun so far. Basically, it's very much. Like, I think the 2D combat I particularly like because it simplifies Dark Souls' combat a bit in a very satisfying way. It's harder to sneak attack somebody when you're on a 2D plane. Basically, you are like the youngest son to this rat king who has like created peace for like decades against these toads. And the toads come, or maybe they're frogs. No, they're toads, I think. Anyway, these toads come and they like in the game you like do this fun tutorial where like you have all this armor and stuff and you're like you're battling your brother who is heir to prove that you're actually worthy of the crown, and you come in and you fucking you beat your brother who's like, good job, man. And then these toads come and just fucking murk your dad. And like the king's dead and like they just burn down the kingdom and like you're left for dead. And so when you wake up, you've got no armor and now you have to figure out what to do. And there's like side quests and stuff and you're going through. And it's Metroidvania-esque, I think, in the sense that it has this sort of map, but it leans more into the combat side of things than the puzzling side of things. Though there's definitely areas that are sort of blocked off because clearly you're going to need something in order to do that. A lot of keys and stuff to unlock things. Less like upgrade Metroidvania, more like unlocking paths kind of thing. Maybe more on the Vania side of things, actually. That's what I would say. It's like taking a Castlevania inspiration along with Dark Souls' combat stylings. And when I say that, I mean the sense that there are rolls and parries and blocks. Like that's kind of like the way it works, where it's like you really have to time your combat very carefully. You have to consider how heavy your equipment is because it'll encumber you. It does give you, though, and this is something I do appreciate, it gives you sort of the Arkham warning signs. So like yellow attacks are ones that you can parry really easily. Red attacks, it's like, get the fuck out of there, dude. Like you're not gonna be able to do that. So far I'm quite digging it, honestly. It's pretty cool. It has a fun narrator who's like sort of, going through the story, explaining what's happening to your little medieval rat. Beautiful art style, very gorgeous 2D art work. Yeah, I recommend it. I think was it in that bundle? I don't know. It was in a recent bundle on Fanatical, actually. Fanatical has a bundle that I'm sure is actually still going on, because I think it was their like, oh shit, the Complete Dread X collection's on sale, which people should get, by the way, because I'm going to get it because that's a good collection.
Is that the PlayStation Horror one?
Not PlayStation Horror. That's the one where it's like they get a bunch of developers to make horror games and they put them all in a collection, and they're all.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Oh, is that PlayStation? Oh, you mean PlayStation like the aesthetic? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, it's like PSX sort of aesthetic.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
It's currently $6.59 CAD, which means it's probably only like a couple pounds. I recommend that because I've played one of them.
And speaking of PlayStation, I know with PS Plus, there's a very good chance you've redeemed Tales of Iron because it was on there recently.
Yeah, probably actually. When it comes to their bundles, I believe it's in their Platinum Collection. Yes, it's in their Platinum Collection for July, which was really good. I actually got that Tales of Iron. I got Garden Story. Severed Steel is in that one too, which is like fucking dope.
Banger.
Yeah. I already beat it, so I didn't get that one. But I got Tales of Iron, Garden Story, and Floppy Nights because I want all of them. And it's a very good Platinum. I haven't bought something off Fanatical in a long time, but that was one where I was like, oh shit, okie dokie. It's like, I am in. So anyway, that's Tales of Iron. Very cool game. Highly recommend. So with that being said, why don't we move right along to our topic of the week, which I thought it could be just kind of fun to talk a little bit about AI in games, and more specifically the AI that we've been talking about that's been in the news in recent years, or recent months, essentially. And what prompted my thinking of this was like Steam had to put out sort of a statement with their policy on AI in games, and we're like, we've talked, I think, before a little bit on the ethics of like, artificial intelligence and whatnot. And like, realistically, we are neither ethicists or, computer programmers or AI engineers. So like, I don't know.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Are you an AI engineer?
Speak for yourself.
I'm whatever I want to be, Alex.
You're whatever you want. Sure. You guys aren't AI engineers. Give me a break. You're a computer scientist though, Paula. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But that sort of stuff aside, because I think, at the end of the day, we can debate till the cows come home, but we're not the decision makers. What I do think might be interesting to talk about is what we sort of think might be our kind of like pie in the sky uses of this, which Paula, you might even have, I think, a pretty interesting thoughts on this, in terms of like how AI could really benefit games, versus what we think in our sort of capitalist hellscape that we live in is the likely reality of how AI will be used in games. So yeah, I thought we'd go there, which Maybe to start, I'll give like a quick little thing of what I would love to see. When I think about like, and again, because I guess it's interesting because we used to always talk about AI. I mean, literally on our podcast, we talked about AI in games as in like the artificial intelligence that runs the non-player characters, right? Like that has been what we call AI for so long, which was probably a mislabeling of it in general anyways, right? Like I feel like the way, I mean, to be frank, the current usage of the words AI is also, I would say, a mislabeling in a lot of cases, right? Like ChatGPT and stuff where you're like, all right, word predicting software is not AI, but fine. But that's what, tech companies, they want to hype things up and make things sound like something that, we understand, or consumers understand. But when I think of like these sort of AI generation tools, the word predictive software, I don't feel, I'm not sure is going to be something that useful for games. It might be very useful for, say, like if you're creating a massive RPG, it could be a really useful thing for populating a ton of NPC dialogue that you then edit. But I also think that it's so imprecise. And like maybe if we learn how to train it on a bunch of games, it could work. But also that dialogue's not great, right? So it's kind of like, you're like, I don't know where it fits, but I feel like AI image generation is something that could be extremely useful, particularly in the world of textures, right? And I think we already have seen like AI upscaling happening for like mods and whatnot. And that's something that like, I can see designers being worried about, losing jobs and whatnot. But like if this was put into the hands of the designers to allow them to facilitate the grunt work, right, of like making textures that who cares about, so they can then focus on the cooler, more specific things. It's like that to me would be like the best case use. But I don't know. What do you think, Paula?
I mean, there's many ways you could use like AI that generates content, but one of the ways that it could be interesting, I think, there are already games that are being made in this way. Like there are like kind of like chat games where they're like, I don't know if multiple endings, but the AI is used to always give you a different experience where you play. Though I'm not sure how different it is from just using ChatGPT, but whatever. The thing with AI is that right now, in the way it can do very impressive things right now, but since it can't like quite generate content without having something as an input to generate from, there's still like a lot of limitations, because like a company, if they can want to use an AI legally, they have to train it with their own assets, like their own copyrighted assets. Otherwise they would like kind of cross the line where the copyright infringement could, like, there are already countries that say that AI is kind of like copyright infringement, or like they're like getting to that weird territory where they are infringing copyright, but not quite, because they're using the copyrighted material to train them. But the result is not like copyrightable in a way. But anyways, I've actually, because of one of a thing I'm working on, like I got contracted to make a web page. Like one of the people there actually asked me, "Hey, can you use like ChatGPT to write the code for the web page, like in this side of the web page?" And I'm like, you know what? It's difficult because the way that ChatGPT writes code, it is, I guess, proficient on Python, but if you ask it to make a piece of code for, let's say a web page, it will generate, I don't know, the HTML, but it doesn't really have the autonomy to say, hey, you're also gonna need the JavaScript or like the Python bits because the page is in Django and stuff like that. So it has its limitations in the sense that it doesn't see the bigger picture. It just generates word, like ChatGPT especially, just generates word per word. And the way it works is kind of like interesting because it kind of like has all these words like connected in a way, and like they kind of predict like what is the most possible, like the word with the highest probability to each on next based on all the material is read. And I don't know, it has like, it is crazy. Like I saw a thing of how it actually worked, and it has like over 100,000, no, 12 over 12,000 dimensions I consider to make the calculations, and it is stupid. And anyway,
The bottom line is that I think we sort of hit on the fallacy of the question when we recognize that ChatGPT isn't intelligence. It's only working one word at a time. And that, in spite of that, it can do so much is fascinating and incredible. But at the same time, it is way less capable than plenty of people would like to think. All of that said, I think if we put the technical realities of the situation to one side, the grunt work is probably where we want to see that being implemented. So I think of like animations for trees swaying in the wind, generic NPC sort of movement animations. I think texture work was a good point. But also more than that, I think in terms of open worlds and placement and things like that, one of the minor shames of the previous generation of consoles is that all of the talk of harnessing the power of the cloud was just bluster. And I think actually using AI to integrate what's going on there would be magical. Interesting sidebar on that. What Star Citizen is trying to do is create situations where it can cluster servers together in such a way that it can overcome what would ordinarily be technical limits to the seamless, open, expansive universe they're trying to aim for. I won't pretend to actually understand the specifics, but if AI can be involved in making those barriers irrelevant, I think that's a huge thing.
I think one of the other thing that it can do is like snippets of code for very specific actions, or at the very least like save time on it. Especially ChatGPT 4, like 3, it's still like it can write code, but it won't write the prettiest thing. ChatGPT 4 kind of is very worthy in the sense of it is very verbose. Like it likes to talk about how it did the thing, but it's also an interesting tool to make like the more, I guess, a base for the code, like to work on.
And I think that's an interesting one in terms of being a tool to take some of that grunt work away. Ubisoft were in the headlines recently for talking about wanting to use that tool for NPC dialogue as a means of either giving writers a jumping off point or taking that work out of their hands entirely so that they can focus on the core storyline. How do we feel about that? I feel a bit icky personally.
Yeah, it feels weird, like in the way of like you take away the more organic writing in a way. If you get what I mean, because when you're writing up a character, for example, you have to think of the background, how they talk, what makes them talk in a certain way, like the entire context of it. So I think using AI in that way, it could make like it feel less organic. And also it's just like, I don't know, like each creative person has their own workflow, so maybe for some it would work, for others it wouldn't. Like, I don't know. What do you think, Alex? You're actually more in the writing scene, like more familiar. Oh my god, you're more used to it.
Well, it's doomed. Like, it's not a thing that will work. Now, what I think is going to happen, and so this is where the capitalist sort of realist side of me comes into this. I'm certain they're already doing this. Like, they've already been doing this for a while, like using sort of predictive models to create templates and whatnot. I mean, this is part of why the Writers Guild of America is on strike, right? Like, this is a thing that like they're really like companies are going to really try to use. But what I think is realistically going to occur is that companies are going to try to do this, and it's going to be bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's bad. It's just not good. Like, because the writing that these models provide can sometimes be okay, but if you rely on them entirely, it becomes noticeable. Now, if a company decides to say, I don't know, put in this type of writing in NPCs and then cash on the fact that they sound sort of memey and stupid, that could be successful for a company as a one-off, right? I think more realistically what we're going to see is that, yeah, some of these models might become kind of a thing for jumping off point, but most companies are going to quickly realize this doesn't help and doesn't assist after a few things tank. But instead, what I fear is going to happen is we're going to see an explosion in shitty AI-generated games, which we've already seen this type of explosion with, like, I mean, honestly, I feel like it's already coming. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the writing's on the goddamn wall. Like, we're going to have so many games being pummeled out that are just like borderline unplayable, but have all of this dialogue and all this shit thrown into them through AI generation. So long as the only way that I think they could sort of stop this is if more regulations are created that require you to disclose what sort of AI you use. But even then, I think you're going to see a lot of it. It's just because, like, from a writing side of things, like, the big issue with these word predictive softwares is that they can never create anything new per se, right? Which is not actually a problem. Most human art and writing is some kind of, you know, not like regurgitation, but like remixing on something that has come before, right? Like, that's
evolution, not revolution. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem is that ChatGPT can never, and like text predictive software, a true artificial intelligence is a whole other goddamn ball game, which I think we're actually probably in our lifetimes going to see artificial intelligence hit the ground. We're certainly getting damn close. Like, some of even ChatGPT 4, like, I am a pretty big skeptic of this software. You know, I have people telling me like, oh, you know, it's gonna like revolutionize all this shit, and I was like, yeah, we said that about everything, and it'll change things. The world is changing for sure. Like, we're entering into a new world at this point, right? With a new reality, which is this kind of software. I won't deny that it is new, but I'm not entirely sure it's going to change the way, like, that drastically, the ways in which we interface with these sort of jobs and whatnot, right? Which might be sort of like a high flute cutaway of going through this, but it's like, I think of it this way. Look at what happened to the internet, right? The internet is this thing where we're like, it'll revolutionize the world, and it did. Did it become this big, free, wonderful thing? No, it's this horrifyingly capitalistic nightmare where, like, everything is owned by everyone. Like, think about what's in the news right now, right? Threads is in the news because you get two fucking billionaires who own like half of the world's social media at this point, fighting with one another. And you're like, this dude owns just like all of social media. And then the crazy part is that people flock to it, right? Which I think is like the extra insane thing. So I know this seems like maybe a tangent, but like bringing it back to the way AI, I think, is going to be implemented in games. I think that, you know, I see so many beautiful potentials for it, but I think realistically, video game developers, I think, need to goddamn well unionize, because anything that can, like, you know, cut corners and cut costs especially in the video game world, wherein it rakes in so much money, I think is going to get exploited hard. And when I look at AI right now, and especially that word predictive software, like you said, where it's going to be bad, but like ultimately, it's not great already anyway. And if that can shrink projects, and we already can see that games at the moment are hitting a bit of a they're hitting a crisis point, frankly, where they cost a lot of goddamn money, and it's hard to get them out on a timeline that makes any kind of sense. And they're not like game development time's not getting shorter, right? Like it's just getting bigger. And like think about how long it took Starfield to come out, and think about Elder Scrolls 6 now. That's probably a half a decade, maybe a decade away, right? Like you can imagine that large studio execs are probably getting pretty fucking tempted by the idea of, you know, using these sort of generative softwares to shorten development times. And the worst part is that I like to think that we wouldn't accept it, right? That we would be against all of this. But like, we've accepted loot boxes and microtransactions. It's coming. You know what I mean? Like, all the shit that you think would be horrendous, no, people bought it because they want these things. Because they don't want the microtransactions and all that shit. I'd argue that most people don't want them, but we do want to play games. And we don't have actually that much choice as to like where we get those games from, right? Because ultimately the video game market tends to kind of agree on what everybody's going to do together, right? Do they, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's a monopoly per se. It's just that, like, even look at the FTC trial that just happened, right? Big news, Microsoft won in the US. That just came down today. Because we tend to forget that Sony has a crazy market share when it comes to video games, right? Like, there's really like a couple companies that have this massive market share. And so I think that ultimately, give it a couple years. Hell, there's no transparency with AI. We may have already had word predictive software being used in games. And ultimately, if I can't notice it, cool. But when we suddenly get a stream of games where with just shit that just sounds a little off, it's just going to kind of open the floodgates. And again, like I said, if like ChatGPT 4 is pretty good, but it does rely on you providing inputs. So like, I don't know. If it can be really useful and actually produce content that is honestly indistinguishable from what somebody has written, maybe it's fine, right? But my only concern is just the individuals who are creating said work. As long as they're not being let off and they're allowed to divert their attention to other things to improve games and help game development be less of a slog, I'm so happy. Realistically, I see them just being axed to make budgets smaller. You know, that's my 2 cents on it. I don't know. That was a lot of stuff. What do you throw it back at you guys?
I feel like my thoughts on this are very underdeveloped, quite like the technology. I don't know. I don't know if I have too much to throw back, as underwhelming as that is.
That's fine. I don't know. What do you think, Paula?
I don't know. In my opinion, I feel like it's gonna go the capitalistic way, and and people are gonna, like, companies are gonna try to make a budget smaller and try to generate content. I don't know if a game can entirely like be generated by just AI without like a person unifying everything, so it doesn't fall apart.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like there's like. I don't feel like it's gonna be like with AI art, where the internet has been flooded to the point of, hey, is this really art or is it AI art? So I feel like at the very least in the video game scene, since games have like multiple kinds of art going on for them, it's gonna be more difficult to try to flood the market like with AI generated games.
I agree with that.
I still feel like people are gonna try, but I don't think it's gonna be as big as AI art.
I like that though. Yeah, you're right. They're definitely gonna try, right? Like, I think that's sadly something we can agree on. Most of these companies will try fucking anything once. I mean, but think about it too, right? They all jumped on the NFT train, and that didn't go so hot.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the question is this a grift or is this legit, right? And I think you're right, Rick, that it's still maybe a bit too early to even know if this is something that has legs to it, right? Like, does this technology actually have what is needed to really revolutionize the gaming space, or is this just kind of a tech bro fad, right? Which, let's be real, we've seen a lot of those. And we've also seen a lot of companies try to jump into gaming and fail spectacularly because gaming is pretty complicated, and a lot of people have tried to make shortcuts. I'm thinking of you, Google Stadia, and think they understand what is sort of needed in this world, and they never do. So I don't know. I'm like slightly optimistic, but then also terrified, which maybe that's a good place to be. Anything else? I think we've sort of exhausted the topic a little.
I think I've exhausted what I have to give to the topic.
Yeah, same.
Nice. What do you all think?
I could talk about AI all day, but that's not what this is about. So
yeah, I mean, me too. I just think it's fascinating. But it enters into the world of speculative science fiction, which is not what we're here about today. What we are here for, though, is How Long to Beat the Game.
What a beautiful segue that was.
It's my turn. That was pretty good, right? I'm pretty proud of that one. It is my turn today. So you all, and actually scores wise, it's Rick and I are tied at 22 each, and Paula's at 18, which means really this is very much anybody's game. But whose game specifically is it? We will find out.
And more importantly, what game specifically are we going to be guessing the times for?
You're going to be guessing. Didn't we already do this one? Did we already do Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think we did.
If in doubt, switch it out.
Okay, let's see. I feel like no. No, we've done so many of these. Oh my god, it's just feeding me Fire Emblems. And like a bunch of Fire Emblems we've already done. God, now here's the problem. We've been doing this for so long now that a lot of these games we've done already. Let's see. Oh my god, no, we can't do this one. No, that doesn't work. Well, there's just to give you transparency, it was FIFA 14, but FIFA 14 is just like all lumped together into single player. It doesn't even have a breakdown of different different games. But this one I actually think is interesting and we can do, and that is Final Fantasy X. Not the remastered. This is just straight Final Fantasy X. OG. Baby. That's right. So yeah, just the original Final Fantasy X on the PS2. And in terms of what I want you to tell me about it, let's see.
Yeah, before I scroll down the Wikipedia page.
Oh, interesting. Okay. How many people do you think are currently playing this game right now?
Currently playing?
Yeah. And not the remastered one, none of that stuff. Like, just currently playing Final Fantasy X.
Wait, how different is Final Fantasy X versus Final Fantasy X HD?
No idea.
Oh, as in terms of content, there is no difference.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You have options, I believe, to speed up combat. You have options to change the difficulty in the battle, encounter rate, and certain other things on the fly. Content-wise, it's identical. I think it's literally just updated models and textures.
Okay, so
Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to give you a slightly different bonus category because I think this one's actually more interesting. How many people have logged this as like completed on PlayStation 2?
Ooh,
Just on PlayStation.
on the
2,
original
okay.
platform.
Yeah, on the original platform. That's what I want to know. I'm curious.
Wait. You said you could speed up combat on the remake.
Yeah, but we're not looking at the remake. We're looking at the original, so it's much of a muchness.
Yeah, but like a while ago, while I was logging in my Final Fantasy games phone on HowLongToBeat.
Ha! You did this one?
Take a look. I did this one because I do have it like lying around like for Vita. And I just realized that's like it's gonna be longer because you can't speed up the time on the original.
Maybe.
Possibly. My times are all in, Paula, no pressure.
No pressure at all.
But, you know, a bit of pressure, clearly.
Where the hell is how long? I mean, not how long. Where the hell is Discord?
Paula with the sneak.
Paula's a very sneaky.
Where is Alex? There is Alex. Okay. So the extra question was, I forgot.
How many people have beaten this on PlayStation 2?
Okay.
Alrighty. Almost there.
Hold on. I'm still over here.
I know. It's okay.
Okay.
Who will get it right? Only
She's still
time will
going.
tell.
Okay. How many people have I didn't see some places? Okay, I'm just gonna go.
Just take a guess, because that's all this game is about.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Alrighty,
It was
I've got
Alex,
both.
right? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you sent it to me. Well, it doesn't matter at this point. Okay, so let's see here. Oh, God, I can never figure out a good way to do this on my screen. There's just Discord's too big. Okay, so oh wow, I saw one of Paula's old posts, and I thought that was her current one, where it said like main was 9 hours, and I was like, Jesus, really? But that was an old one. Paula's actual time is 44 hours for main story, and Rick has said 48 hours. Interesting. You both get it, because the main time was 46 hours, so you two cut it right down the middle.
Oh my God.
Beautiful.
Yeah, literally directly down the middle. Yeah, so there you go. Both get a point for that one. When it comes to main plus, Rick has said 70 hours, and Paula said 68 hours and 30 minutes. Interesting. Rick, you're right on the money, though. Main plus is 70 hours. So that one's going to go to Rick. Both very close, but Rick was spot on. In terms of 100%, Paula said 130 hours, and Rick has said 125 hours. The correct answer for this one is actually 147 hours. So that one is going to go to Paula.
So that's 2 all going into the bonus round.
Yeah. So for the bonus round, Rick says currently playing, aka the number who have said this, I've played this on PlayStation. Rick has said 2100, and Paula has said 180, which that's a bit low.
PlayStation 2 launch title.
Yeah, PlayStation 2. I mean, this game was launched with the PlayStation 2. So the answer is 2,228. So that one handily goes to Rick. Yeah. Yeah, that's...
I'll be honest, I thought I'd lowballed it, but yeah.
I'm going to be honest, 180, like, that's not even... I mean, 207 have played this on the Nintendo Switch. The lowest was
Wait, it's on
21 on
Switch?
Xbox One. No, it's not. That's people who have labeled this incorrectly because they've played the remaster, but they've labeled this one as that. Which I would actually say,
As in the HD remaster got a port.
yeah,
That makes
I
sense.
actually
Yeah.
think though that if you look this up, I don't actually know if the remaster is even possible on this because. Yeah, you know what? I don't think you can label X as a remaster because, like you said, it's exactly the same. So the only entry for X2 HD remaster is the one that has them combined together.
Yeah.
So this has the
Yeah,
alias of the
I know.
HD one. Yeah. So that's probably why I think it's combined because ultimately it would be meaningless to put these in a separate category because they would just quite literally be exactly the same.
Yeah.
Wow,
So-
I'm looking at the games, like at the times, like comparing with the HD remaster, like for the two games combined.
Mhm.
And it shows that the main story, like for this is 46 and something hours, and the main story for the two combined is 51 and something hours, unless they're counting like
But
just
that's-
X as the main story.
I'm
Speed
certain.
ups and X2 shorter. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
And also, I'm pretty positive that people probably beat 10 and consider the remaster to be done. Like there are likely some who just do not play the whole thing.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I would not be surprised at all if that was the case. You know what I mean? Because I bet you some people can have put in main plus extra. Because if you look at main plus extra, that's 87 hours, which sounds to me a little bit like extra is X2.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, highly goddamn rated game though. 85 on How Long to Beat, and then the Final Fantasy X has 87. So
People remember the laugh and they forget that the game around the laugh was actually very, very good. I didn't finish it. I played most of the way through as a youngster on PS2, and it's a really, really well done turn-based game. There's a lot of quality of life stuff that was very ahead of its time in that game, particularly in its battle system.
yeah, I've never played it. I own it on like multiple things. I've just never.
I believe that. Yeah.
I have like a physical of this one actually that I do mean to play. Or do I? Is it a physical of 12 that I have? I don't know. I think I have this. I have this for Switch, and I had it on PlayStation 4. But I think I received it in PlayStation. It might have been in like a PS Plus thing or something at some point. I don't actually remember buying it. But anyway, someday I'll play this. He says in vain. Until then, though, that's been the How Long to Beat podcast. Tune in next week for more of us talking about fucking shit that we're playing. Well, bye.
Bye.